Welcome to Voices from the Abyss. Every week, we descend into another story where the water is dark, the silence is heavy, and not everything waiting beneath the surface has stayed there. So turn the lights down, get on your flippers, and if you enjoy stories that make you afraid to get into the bathtub, don't forget to follow. And if there's a fear, a legend, or a deep-sea nightmare you'd like to hear brought to life, leave it in the comments. You never know. Your idea might be the next one to rise from the depths. Now, take a deep breath. We're going under. Lifeguards are taught a lot of rules. Never leave your station. Never take your eyes off the water. And before you lock the doors at the end of the night, make absolutely certain that the pool is empty. Gavin followed that rule every closing shift for 6 years. Then one night, the count was wrong. This is Closing Count. 6 years at Marsh Street Pool, and I could do the closing walk with my eyes shut. Skim net back on the hook, chairs stacked in fours, bathrooms, then locker rooms, then the pool. Always in that order. Routine meant that nothing got missed. Indoor pool, so no gate. Just the door off the lobby, and it locked itself the second the deadbolt clicked over at 10. One rule at Marsh Street, same as every pool I've ever worked: never leave someone behind. Doesn't matter that the door is locked and the lights are off. You count heads until the number is 0. The water had gone glassy once the evening swim classes ended and everyone cleared out. I did my walk. Bathrooms clear, locker rooms clear. I came around the deep end of the pool with the pole lights still buzzing behind me, and I stopped. I thought I'd caught something dark on the surface of the water, out of the corner of my eye. I checked my watch. 10:14. Door's been locked for 14 minutes. Nobody would have gotten through a locked door. I, with curiosity churning in my gut, looked at the water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I stood there, confused and befuddled, counting again and again. What I was seeing were 5 heads floating in a locked, closed pool facing the far wall. Not moving, not treading, not breathing. Well, not that I could see. Just resting there on the surface like they'd been set down. Hey, pool's closed. My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to in a room built to carry sound. Hello? You guys hear me? Nothing. Not a head turning, not a ripple, not the flat slap of water against tile that happens every single time the water is disturbed, even a little. An indoor pool echoes like a gymnasium. If 5 people were breathing in that water, I'd have heard it bounce off the walls twice over. But the only thing I was hearing was my own voice coming back to me, and nothing else. I walked the whole perimeter saying it. "Pool's closed. You have to get out." Every time I came around to where I could see their faces, they weren't facing me. They were always facing the far wall. Even when I crossed to the far wall myself, they were suddenly facing the near one. They were turning away from me without any movement. I headed to the panel to throw every light in the building on at once. I turned around, still talking. "You have to leave, this isn't..." And the pool was empty. Not, "I looked away and now they're gone." I was mid-sentence. I was looking directly at the water when the lights came up, and it went from 5 heads to nothing, between one word and the next. I stood in place, blinking hard and pressing the heels of my hands into my eyes to see if they were just playing tricks after a long shift. I told myself the water does that sometimes. Holds light strange, plays with tired eyes. I locked up, drove home, and laid in bed, running the count over and over. 5. I counted 5. Somewhere close to 2 in the morning, I finally managed to convince myself I hadn't actually seen anything, and only then did I fall asleep. On Wednesday, there were 6. I continued to try and rationalize with myself. Well, 6 is just 5, plus a coincidence. I turned the lights on, holding my breath, and when the water came up empty, I let that breath out slow, like I had been the one holding still underwater. Thursday, 7. Same held breath, same emptiness when the lights hit. I started believing I could outwait it, that some nights it would just be nothing at all, and I'd get to stop counting. Friday, 8. I was having a hard time believing it was just the lights. They never moved. A body floating will drift a little, even with no one swimming. The jets alone push enough current through the filtration system to nudge a real person at least an inch or two over a few minutes. These didn't drift so much as a hair. They held their spot, like they'd been bolted to the water from underneath. I told my sister it was probably matrixing. Tired eyes finding faces in nothing. She said maybe I should quit nights, but I told her I needed the differential pay. She understood, and we let it go. Saturday, I did the walk half numb to it already, telling myself whatever the count was, I'd turn the lights on and it'd be nothing, same as every night before. If the pattern held, it should have been 9. I counted. 7. I almost laughed, told myself I'd lost track, recounted, and got 7 again. I let it go with a shrug, a mental note, nothing that slowed me down. Then I turned to hit the lights, and it was standing right there, close enough that I felt the cold coming off its skin like a freezer door left open. I didn't even have time to flinch. It was just suddenly filling the space, inches in front of me. Its eyes were the flat, ruined white of water gone bad in a tank nobody's cleaned in years. It was smiling. The smile stretched so wide across its face, its skin bunched up on its cheeks like a shark's gills. I couldn't move. My brain was taking all of the information it would normally use to make my legs react and repurposing it into trying to understand what I was looking at. It breathed in, and the sound was wet and rattling, like a drain almost finished swallowing the last inch of water out of a basin. And then when it breathed out, water came with it, running down its chin, flowing over its chest, and spilling onto the tile floor. It lifted one arm and pointed past my shoulder. Every part of me wanted to keep my eyes on it and not look. I knew I had to look, though, in order for this nightmare to end. Dread pooled somewhere deep in my chest, and I turned, expecting to find the 7 heads out where they always floated, near the far wall. They were 3 feet in front of me, lined up at the near edge, close enough to touch. Every one of them were wearing that same smile, wide and hollow, not reaching the flat dead white of their eyes. The thing in front of me put both hands on my shoulders and shoved. I went backward hard, and it was the resisting that did it. Planting my heel against the shove instead of riding with it, my foot skidded out on the wet tile. I went down, one knee at the very edge. And that's when the hands came up out of the water and frantically clawed at my ankles. Their faces didn't change at all, still smiling, still watching. I don't remember deciding to fight back. I remember scrambling backwards on my hands, kicking loose of fingers that felt like they were made out of the pool itself, getting one foot under me and then the other, and running before I was even fully upright. I don't even remember leaving through the door, but I remember the parking lot and looking back once from my car, because I needed to know if they were coming after me. And there was nothing. The lot was empty, the building dark and quiet, like it had never held anything at all. It was only once I was in the car, hand shaking too hard to get the key in, that I saw the scratches on both ankles, covered in thin red lines, already starting to swell. And my shoulders were soaked through, 2 damp handprints on the fabric, cold enough that I felt it through my shirt the whole drive home. I quit the next morning, told the district office I'd taken a warehouse job, I hadn't. I just couldn't say the true reason out loud to a man with a clipboard. Marsh Street stayed open a few more years after that. The guards who came after me never mentioned anything unusual. Not that I heard. Though one of them did go missing after a closing shift. Just poof. Never clocked out. Car still in the lot the next morning. The city called it a personal matter and left it there. Eventually, they closed the building for good and tore it down. Their reasoning was structural issues. Cracked shell, bad rebar. The kind of reasonable explanation nobody thinks to question. To this day, I still hear a different version of the story around town. From the people who worked the demo crew or knew somebody who did. The rumor is that when they finally broke up the old filtration vault under the drains, they found more than pipe and sediment down there. I didn't ask for details. I already know what a closed pool sounds like when it's not empty. I've heard it breathe. Thank you for listening to Voices from the Abyss. If tonight's story stayed with you, click the follow button to make sure you never miss what surfaces next. Until next time, sleep well, and remember, not every abyss is underwater. Good night.